Imagine an unstable political climate where powerful white men ran everything and things only got worse and worse. Oh wait, we don't have to. So it seems that history always repeats itself because this has happened before. Welcome to the Gilded Age. From 1865 to 1902, political bosses such as William Boss Tweed ran the world using bribery and fraud to intimidate people into giving their votes to them. They traded poor workers and immigrants' jobs for their support, preying on the weak to increase their power. This was a problem that called for an answer, a person who would rise up to the challenge and fight to give us back our say in politics. But who?
I'll tell you who.
Everyone give it up for America's favorite fighting Frenchman!
Lafayette. Not this Lafayette, whose name is actually pronounced La Follette, despite what it looks like and what we are told by Mr. Jose. Robert La Follette, or as his friends knew him, Fighting Bob, was born in 1855 in Primrose, Wisconsin. La Follette looked at the corrupt political system around him and decided that change had to be made. So he took notes from Bob the Builder and decided to rebuild democracy.
Political bosses of the Gilded Age weren't the only ones to use bribery. One fine day in 1891, American businessman and later U.S. Senator Philetus Sawyer tried to bribe La Follette to interfere with a court case, but La Follette refused the bribery and was so offended that he spent the next 10 years speaking out against crooked politicians, powerful lumber barons, and railroad interests, launching his political career and fight for reform. He fought for things such as tax reforms, railroad regulations, and primary elections, which all became known as the Wisconsin Idea.
But how did the Wisconsin Idea work?
Let's break this down. Now, Robert believed that the railroads were an important part of the Progressive Revolution. I mean, transportation and Thomas the Tank Engine. Who wouldn't love it? However, he did not so much like the power of the few who controlled the railroads, so he persuaded the House of Legislators to tax them based on how much land they owned and to regulate their commissions made on tickets.
However, he did not stop there. You know that freedom we all know and love of being able to know that our voices are heard in our political system through our votes? Well, that's all thanks to Robert La Follette. See, La Follette thought that our government really should be of the people, by the people, and for the people. So he introduced the ideas of initiative, which allows voters to be able to introduce laws they think are important, referendum, which allows voters to actually vote for these laws, and recall, which allowed voters to be able to vote active politicians out of office if they were acting up. This allowed for a system of checks and balances to be better established.
But did Robert stop there? No. He said not only should voters get a say in what laws there were and who should be in office, they should also have a say in the people getting elected. This led to the introduction of primary elections. Funny story though, when La Follette was going to introduce this idea at the Republican convention that summer, he learned that the people of his own party who opposed him were going to sabotage and take over the convention so that La Follette couldn't go through with the plan. However, because La Follette knew about this beforehand, and because the convention was being held at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, the college he graduated from, he hired the football team to be security and to make sure everything was on the up and up. He quite literally hired a bunch of big dudes for intimidation. President Kennedy was right when he said that La Follette was a ceaseless battler for the underprivileged and a courageous independent who never wavered from his beliefs.
All of these reforms helped ratify the 17th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. The amendment said that the Senate would be composed of 2 senators from each state, voted for by the people for a term of 6 years, and if a spot should ever open up, the people would vote again for a new senator to represent them. These reforms weren't the only ones La Follette participated in. In fact, he was also a big advocate for women's rights, African American rights, and the environment. Robert and his wife Belle, who was the first woman to graduate from the University of Wisconsin-Madison in law and a big supporter of the women's suffrage movement, started a magazine together called The Progressive, where the couple, along with many others, wrote about the many issues facing the United States, fighting for reform through the press. The magazine helped spread the word of these reforms and allowed all types of people to have a voice. This includes La Follette's own wife, who had her own column in the magazine. La Follette also helped to fight for the environment, working with the University of Wisconsin's geologist and president, Charles Van Hise, to protect Wisconsin's natural resources from economic exploitation. He even gave advice to Roosevelt on this topic and wrote a book on conservation in 1910.
Robert La Follette was a great progressor who made many lasting impacts that are still relevant today.
This includes tax reforms, railroad regulations, environmental conservation, initiative, referendum, and recall, the establishment of primary elections, and the ratification of the 17th Amendment, all of which helped bring America further past the corruption of the Gilded Age and into a new era.